the most important thing is to enjoy the time and to be outside and yeah, be out of your daily life.
Sebastian, welcome to the Roadman Cycling Podcast.
Thanks a lot for the invitation, and yeah, nice to be here.
So I was in Badlands for a very brief period. I was on a team in Badlands and I had a mechanical. I think I must have been the first person to DNF Badlands. My DI2 broke off the very first descent. Remember the descent that had like the two bollards in the middle of the road right at the start?
Ooh, that's first of all, it's not too nice. Yeah, I think DNF at Badlands is yeah, it's not a nice option to quit the race. So yeah, I'm really sorry for this.
But I remember seeing you over the top. I don't know, there was maybe like 8, 9 left in the front group. And I remember saying to my teammate, I was like, this guy has like 3D printed aero bars. I was like, we're so fucked. Like, we're so badly prepared for this.
Yeah,
Were,
I
were
really
you
take
riding 3D printed bars?
no, it's from Dida, an Italian brand. It's not 3D printed, but it's I think for the pro athletes. So you can buy it, but I think in that color option, it's just for the pro athletes and
They,
for me.
So I think that's as good a place as any to start. I'd like to talk about, because I went into Badlands as a total newbie, and I know since releasing my podcast on Badlands, a lot of our listeners have expressed interest about doing it next year. And obviously you're the winner of Badlands this year, if anyone didn't know. Congratulations.
Thanks a lot.
So I want to dive in and talk about preparation for Badlands, everything from bike to nutrition to course recce. So from a regular gravel bike, what was your setup like? Talk us through it.
Who I think from a regular gravel bike, I think the main difference is I think the bags. Or my choice was just to carry some food, so I just have to carry two bigger bags on my back and so on my seat post and in my frame. And yeah, for sure that aero bars, I use them at Unbound as well, but I think all the other stuff is the same like on a normal gravel bike, I think.
And you were obviously going through knowing you weren't going to sleep, so you didn't bring bivy or any sort of sleep system.
Yes, that's true. I just had some arm warmers with me, and yeah, a lot of food. That's everything.
How planned out is your nutrition strategy? I had Lael Wilcox on, who won the female version of Badlands, and I was just thinking she was going to have this cool dialed in nutrition strategy, grams of carbohydrates per kilogram of body weight per hour. And she was just like, no, I just ate ice cream whenever I could. I was like, whoa.
Yeah, I think the biggest problem at Badlands is the possibility to refill because in the desert there's nothing. You can't really refill, so you have to carry a lot of water with you. On my back, I had a hydration bag with I think 2 or 3 liters of water, and then in my frame 2 bottles of water, and under my frame one more. But the bottle under my frame was filled with coffee for the night. And yeah, in my bags there were just bars and gels. So I think you really have to take care about your planning because when you while crossing the desert, it's not possible to refill. So you have to look for bigger cities like Almeria, for example, and then you really have to take all the food you can get.
And did you have a pacing strategy? Were you using a power meter or was it all off perceived effort?
No. I talked to my coach before the race a lot about that, And yeah, my pacing was like, I think 190 to 200 watts. So yeah, that was my pacing.
And where's that in terms of your threshold? Is that a zone two ride or where's it sitting?
It's, I think currently, I'm not sure because I don't I don't really know much about training because I have a coach and yeah, he's taking care of me. So I just have to ride my bike, but I think it's about 360, I think.
So it's funny, some athletes, yeah, I get to chat with a lot of pro athletes on the podcast, and some athletes are so dialed in their training and they love to know every aspect about it. And then other guys are just totally hands off. They're like the same as I would look at, hiring a plumber to fix the sink. I'm like, I don't want to know. Just fix the sink. Just don't tell me the detail.
Yeah, I think too much detail isn't good for me because I really like to take care of my bike and aerodynamic stuff, but I think stuff like training and nutrition, I think there are guys who know, like my coach, for example, who knows yeah much more about that. So for me, it's hey, just tell me what I have to do, and yeah, I will do that
So
if it's possible.
how geeky did you go on the bike? I see you ride a Rose bike, which is pretty cool. I haven't seen them in quite a while, and I actually rode for a French team in 2012, and we were sponsored by Rose bikes. So when I was flicking on your Instagram, I was like, "Whoa, there's a blast from the past." It's good to see them still going strong.
Yeah, it's I think for me it's the most beautiful gravel bike. And yeah, for sure the road bike is beautiful as well. So yeah, I started my cooperation with Rose at the beginning of this season, and I'm really happy. And yeah, now they are happy to support me and for my next projects, even for 2023 and 2024.
And do you do any sort of aftermarket, modifications to the bike? I know I've seen you using some ceramic speed stuff in the past. Did you pimp the bike for Badlands with anything like that?
Yeah, I'm using that ceramic speed stuff, the pulley wheels and the special chain, the UFO chain. I think that was one of the most important things on my bike because I never had to take care of my chain. It was the same like unbound, and that's really nice because 800 k's through the desert is yeah that's crazy for the chain, and for me it was like hey no problem, I don't have to take care about that.
What's the chain called?
UFO chain from Ceramic Speed.
Oofa, I haven't heard them. So what's the deal with this? What's the kind of unique selling point with it?
I think the main difference is it's not with oil, it's with that kind of wax.
Okay. Uh,
So no dirt on your chain.
how long does it last?
I'm not sure, but Badlands was no problem. So that was 800 Ks.
So it's like something you would get and put on for a specific event and then go back
Yeah,
to a regular chain
yeah,
for
yeah,
training.
yeah, sure.
That's pretty cool. And you're the first person I've ever heard of. Now, granted, I'm quite new into the scene, but you're the first person I've seen that gives a lot of thought to aerodynamics while carrying bags.
Yeah, I think that's important because my first experience about aerodynamics and long distance races was a transcontinental race in June. And we tested a lot about that on the velodrome in the winter. And yeah, for example, I'm working with Tailfin. They gave me that special rack, and for me that's a perfect combination of aerodynamic and for sure to carry all my stuff with that special rack. And after the testing on the velodrome, we realized that the combination of aero bars and that rack makes me, I think, 13 watts faster. And I think that's a lot.
That is a lot, and especially over an event like Badlands, 13
Yes.
watts can end up being hours at the end.
Yeah. And I think it's important to have a position that's comfortable for you. And for me, that was like being on my own sofa at home. So yeah, that was for me the aero bar stuff is quite nice because I started cycling with road racing, and I was a I think good time trialist. And for me, it was every time about being aerodynamics as most as possible, but on the same time to have a position you're comfortable with. So, and that was the main point to use that aero bars at Badlands.
I think most people won't get a chance to get into the velodrome and aero test their bike packing setup. What was the kind of learnings you can give somebody who's going on a bike packing trip?
Yeah, I think the normal bikepacking trip is not about aerodynamics for sure, because on the normal bikepacking trips, I think it's the most important thing is to enjoy the time and to be outside and be out of your daily life. But when it's about a race, I think it makes you faster. So you really have to take care about aerodynamics.
Is there a specific brand of bag that you found to be the fastest?
Bike or part?
Either or both.
I think bike is that's difficult because last year I was on another brand and it was a really aerodynamic gravel bike, but I think in that kind of bike was not perfect for gravel racing.
Yeah.
And my current bike is I think it's comfortable, but on the same time it's perfect for gravel because you can't destroy it, and I think that's really important. And for specific parts, I think aero bars and smaller details, for example, your Garmin mount, for example, put your Garmin on the right place and not on the handlebar. I think it's better to put it, in front of the handlebar, for example. And socks, for example. A friend of mine, Jasper Ökulon, is running his own sock company, and he's really deep into aerodynamics, and he tested a lot about that. And I think he told me that socks are really important for aerodynamics. So, or your helmet, for example. I think all that small details make you even faster.
And I seen people for the first time in Badlands using the tail fin. And if anyone doesn't know what we're talking about, it's this kind of cool carbon fiber. So when I've been bike packing in the past, I've had the bag that clamps onto the saddle and then onto your saddle pillar. But the problem with that is when you get out of the saddle to climb, it kind of sways around and it feels a little bit like you're towing a trailer behind you. But tail fin is this like cool carbon sleek rack that minimally mounts, doesn't add much extra weight, and it stops that swaying. How good is that to ride?
Yeah, tailfin is just perfect for me because, like you said, that mess with that normal bikepacking bag from your seat post. I think I don't like that because tailfin is so much stiffer. And for example, when on a normal bikepacking trip, you reach the hotel or you stay for the night, and with a tailfin rack, it's easy to reach all your clothes, for example, or your food if it's inside the rack bag. So it's easy in handling. It's really fast, and yeah, I think mounting and dismounting is just easy.
Would you, in an event like Badlands, would you opt for a battery that's charged off your hub?
I'm using a dynamo,
Yeah.
so yeah, a special hub, and I was able to load my or reload my phone, for example. But currently, I'm using the new Garmin device at Edge with Solar, and so yeah, I just need the hub for my front and back lamp.
And what's the Garmin Solar like? I've seen a lot of people using them. It's
Yeah,
worth the money.
sorry.
The Garmin Solar, it's worth the money. It does its job.
Yes, it was perfect because I never had to recharge it. And 43 hours without recharging is, yeah, it's quite nice.
A lot of people listen to the podcast because I'm kind of pushing the alternate cycling agenda. So, for a long time we talked the usual classics, grand tours, and maybe it's a mirror of where my own cycling development is going at the moment. I'm starting to explore more events like Badlands, and now I've had like Leo Wilcox on the podcast, and I've had some other ultra endurance guys on. I'm starting to get inquisitive, and my audience is starting to get inquisitive as like, what's next? What can I do next? They've heard about Badlands. Talk to me about Transcontinental. What is it? When does it take place? And who is it suitable for?
Yeah, transcontinental. That's I think it's difficult for me because on the one hand, it's a nice idea to ride through across Europe in a race, 4,500 Ks of racing, I think in 9 or 10 days against the best in the world, I think. But the problem is in self-supported races, there are two kinds of self-supported races. There's one kind like Badlands that you've got the route and you just have to follow the route. And there's an event like TCR where you have to do your own route. So the most fastest road is always on big roads, and that's terrible because you're going to miss that beautiful landscape, and it's really dangerous with other vehicles. So for me, transcontinental is not an option anymore because I really fell in love with events like Badlands. It's such a new or a nice landscape, and the transcontinental is quite difficult regarding the organization, and you have to pay a lot for stuff like media license of your sponsors and something like that. So I think TCR has to change his mind in the next few years. Otherwise, it could get difficult for them to keep the event stay alive.
So are you attracted by any of the races, the kind of likes of the ones across the mountains in Kyrgyzstan or any of these ones, like the Atlas Mountain Race?
Yes, I can tell you that my next big race is race across the Andes in Chile coming November. And I think my biggest goal for next year is Atlas Mountain Race in February. So two really big races in that long distance world of cycling.
We're kind of used to road cyclists having quite a cyclical body clock where they race all the way through the summer, typically finish up a season around Worlds or maybe Il Lombardia, take a break, take the foot off the gas a little bit into New Year, and then start building condition into New Year, Tour Down Under, etc., and then get back into the season. Is there a similar sort of ebb and flow to the ultra endurance season?
For me, it was all the last couple of years. It was the same for me. Starting the season in spring and ending in October, and doing that 3 to 4 week break, and then restart training for the next season. And this year, I think it's a kind of a new world for me. Just do that 1 week of holidays with my wife, and then restarting my training. I think in 2 weeks for Chile and for Atlas Mountain Race. So for me, it's the first time doing this program and doing my normal break in next spring. But for me, it's perfect because in spring there are a lot of spring classics, and I have to take care about the pro athletes racing as spring classics for our Schwalbe brand here in Germany, because I'm working as a liaison manager at Schwalbe. So for me, it's perfect to do a schedule like this.
I think that's what's quite unique about your story. Normally, when I'm chatting to riders of your caliber, they're professional bike riders, but you're still balancing a full-time job with one of the biggest tire companies in the world, Schwalbe. Like, how do you manage to balance a high-performance sport and a full-time career?
Whew, good question. I think the most important part is my wife. I think without her, it isn't possible for me to do it like that. Um, at home, we have a little dog, for example, and yeah, um, in the last couple of weeks, I was on the road for a long time. Um, Yesterday I came back from the World Champs in gravel, for example, and the balance I think is to have a good schedule for the whole week or for the whole month, and to have to have a wonderful wife. I think that's the secret.
And is Schwalbe a company that's supportive of your endeavors? They give you paid time off work to go and do Badlands Atlas Mountain Race, or are they holidays you have to take?
No, that are my holidays, but for me that's perfect because my my holidays are to refill your battery and to enjoy your time. And the best possibility for me is to do a race like Badlands. So for me, it was a perfect holiday.
And how many hours would you get in a typical training week now, trying to balance work around, personal obligations?
Yeah, I think that depends on my schedule, but I think 15 to 20 hours per week
Okay,
is my training schedule.
it's still quite a lot.
Yeah, I think so, but for me, it's I'm enjoying every minute of it. To go out of the office or the home office and to have some training or some bike riding is for me it's a perfect combination after a stressful day of work.
And do you fit that in just like where a gap allows, or are you regimental and like training happens first thing in the morning or last thing at night?
Well, that depends on the schedule too. I think there are times like last week. There was the World Championships in triathlon at Kona, and at the same weekend the Gravel World Championships. So a lot of meetings in two different time zones, and then I have to really take care of that schedule. And if there is some time, I'm going for a bike ride, and if there's no time, I have to work. That's it.
Schwalbe is such a cool job, especially as a newbie coming into the sport. The main question I have, and the main question I get asked from people who are like one chapter behind me, is about tires. Like we raced a gravel race a couple of weeks ago at the weekend, and it was like a local 100-kilometer race, 2,000 meters of climbing with some hard pack gravel, but then some looser stuff. And I ran like a 44 mil tire with some knobbles on it. But it's like, I don't know if like a 42 mil tire with slick would have been a faster setup. How, like when you're in this world of tires, how do we make sense of the correct tire choice?
I think it's all about experience. For me, for example, at the American Gravel event Unbound, we launched a new gravel tire, and I think currently it's one of the fastest in the world. And I started riding this tire, I think, 1 year before. And I spent a lot of time with that tire. And for me, I think I know everything about that tire. And it's not too difficult to choose the right one. For example, for the World Championships last week, there was a question, okay, which tire size? 35 or 40 or 45? And I know everything about the tire, especially about aerodynamics, rolling resistance, puncture resistance, and I think it's all about experience about the tires.
What's the name of that Schwalbe tire?
That's a Schwalbe G1 RS.
G1 RS. And what sizes is that coming?
35, 40, and 45.
Okay, so I rode a 44 for the weekend. So say I rode the Schwalbe 45,
Yeah.
and I've decided that that's the correct tire for me based on my experience. Now my next question becomes, what pressure do I run that tire at? Do you use that pressure calculation solely based off a rider's weight, or is there other considerations?
Yeah, it depends on your rim, on the tire. I think on your system, for example, I going with a tube or without tube, tubeless. Your weight, for example, that all that stuff is quite important to find the right pressure, and like I said, your experience because um, when I'm taking part in a race. I try to learn everything about the course. For example, last weekend there was the World Championships in gravel in Italy, and I checked the whole course, 180K, some days before to have the perfect pressure for my setup. And yeah, I think that depends on your experience with the tire. Some guys really prefer to ride with lower pressure, other ones with a bit higher pressure. I'm a guy who likes to ride with higher pressure, but I think that depends on every rider.
And would you default to riding tubeless normally?
Yeah, I think last time I I touched a tube was 4 or 5 years ago. Normally, um, yeah, f- I think every time for me it's every time all about tubeless systems. But for example, at Badlands, I had two spare tubes with me, but yeah, just spare tubes. No
So,
need for that.
so I looked at the weekend watching the gravel worlds. Daniel Oss, who got second in the elite men's, I seen on his saddle pillar, it looked like he had a kind of sealant with him. Like if you're running a tubeless setup, would you typically bring just plugs and CO2 cans, or would you also bring sealant?
Yeah, just tubes, just plugs and CO2.
So what's the idea of the sealant that he's bringing? Just in case it's a big rip?
I think that's a special sealant. It's more like a foam. I know that from mountain bike racing, but never tested before, to be honest.
Interesting, interesting. So what's next? What's exciting you at the moment? If you look ahead for, if we have a chat, it's this time next year or this time 2 years, what's the big plans, the big dominoes you'd like to knock over?
Um, I think my big goals are Kyrgyzstan, Silk Road Mountain Race,
Amazing.
and going to the US for some racing, like yeah, Unbound for one more time, for example. And yeah, I think that the big goals for the next 1 or 2 years.
How's Unbound? It's a race I'm tempted to do next year.
This year I take part in that 200 miles race. That was yeah, it was a crazy one because a lot of pro athletes yeah try to win that race, and it was really fast. I think one of the hardest workouts the whole year. And next year I'm thinking about that XL race with 350 miles.
Sounds brutal.
So yeah, and yeah, but to be honest, Unbound for me it was like a dream this year because I was 16 in the end. It was a perfect result for myself, and we just won it with that Dutch guy Iva, who won that pro race, and he's a Schwalbe athlete, so it was like a dream come true,
What do you think
especially.
makes what do you think makes you successful in these races? Obviously, you're a fit guy, but what makes you gravitate and more precisely, more than just gravitate, what makes you a champion at the ultra distance? Is it sleep deprivation? Is it fatigue resistance? Is it, your processing fuel over longer periods better?
I think you have to be resistant against everything. So yeah, it's quite difficult to say because everybody um, yeah, it's not how can I tell you? I think it's not the same for everyone else because Some guys like long distance racing, others don't like it. I think it's a kind of mental game. For example, being really tired in the race, and for me it's like, okay, the other guys are tired. Now it's my time to go full gas. And yeah, I think you have to be the strongest in all views.
So you're almost looking for that point of fatigue. The same way if I'm doing a interval and I'm trying to, win road races. When I get to that point when I want to quit doing an interval, there's one voice on one shoulder saying, okay, quit. But then the voice on the other shoulder saying, okay, this is the only moment you've been training for. This is the only part that matters because everyone else is training as hard as this. Now it matters. So you're having this same dialogue with sleep deprivation and fatigue when you get to a point where you're like, oh, this is really hard. I'm really suffering. That's when you have to double down and make the separation.
Yeah, I think so. Uh, for me, it is like, okay, if it hurts, it's perfect because if it hurts me, the others, yeah, I still they are still not alive anymore. So um, yeah, I think that's a good point for me, to be that resistant. And funny side fact is, for Badlands, for example, most of the guys are thinking, okay, you have to train long stuff. For example, 9 to 10 hours endurance rides or stuff like that. But for me, it was like training with that really short intensive intervals, like 30 to 30, 20 to 40, 40 to 20. And yeah, it was brutal, but yeah, in the end, it worked out.
You're just training like a road racer, essentially.
Yes.
And it was pretty cool seeing Juan Antonio Fletcher, I'd say, rolling up on your shoulder.
Yeah. I think Juan Antonio was really tired at the end of Badlands.
Oh, he was in a bad way. I don't even think he brought any food or water. He just had a camera with him. I was thinking he's going to be eating that camera after 2 days.
Yeah, I was joking to him at the start because he was like putting the camera on his back, and I was thinking, okay, that's crazy for the whole race because the roads are really bumpy and yeah, it's not easy to ride them with a camera on your back. But I think for him it worked out. But yeah,
Yeah,
he was really tired.
Sebastian, thanks very much for chatting to me on the Roadman podcast.
Thanks a lot, and see you soon.